Can you unravel the world's greatest mysteries?
Can you explain the unexplained and find the pieces to the most puzzling cases?
Or are you a keen UFO spotter, but you don't know the best paint to use to do the spots on shiny alien metal?
That's not what being a UFO spotter means, Tiernan.
Oh, doesn't it?
Are you a mythbuster?
Or a myth truster? I'm Tiernan.
And I'm Athena.
Welcome to Bust or Trust,
a kids' mystery podcast.
And we are the Busters or Trusters. We will look into some very strange stories from all around the world. No mystery is too big for us. Monsters, ghosts, and all types of the unexplained. Like, why aren't all staircases escalators?
Yeah, why do we have all these amazing inventions, but we still have to walk upstairs all the time?
Also, all hills should have escalators on them too.
And mountains. Fact. We dive into all the evidence we can find and present all the facts, figures and testimonies. Then it's up to you, our chief detectives. You'll work out what it all means and make up your own mind. Is our case ghostly sailing or clearly failing? Are you a mythbuster like me? Because things aren't always what they seem.
Or are you a myth truster like me? Because the truth will out.
Out what?
I don't know, but I'm guessing we'll find out eventually.
Oh, I really hope so.
We'll tell you at the end of the show just how to get in touch, and you can let us know if you're on Team Buster or the best one, Team Truster. We'll also hear from you, our chief detectives, and your thoughts on the previous cases, so stay tuned.
But until then, make sure you take notes, pay attention to all the information, and start putting together your case.
The case.
Athena?
Oh no, what are you going to ask me?
Why'd you get ghost ships but not ghost planes or ghost cars?
Tiernan, that would be a very good question if ghost ships actually existed.
Oh wait, there are ghost trains too, aren't there? Maybe they only take environmentally friendly transport. Oh, are there ghost bikes?
No, there aren't ghost bikes. There also aren't ghost ships. Or, okay, there are ghost trains, but they aren't made by... Ugh, why do you have to ask such ridiculous things?
Because once again, it's up to our chief detectives to decide if ghost ships exist or not, and they need all the information. This week, we're looking at the case of the mysterious ghost ship, the Flying Dutchman. Wait, hang on. If it's the Flying Dutchman, is it a ghost plane as well?
No, it is definitely not. Shall I tell our chief detectives all about it?
Aye, aye, Captain. Facts ahoy!
The Flying Dutchman is a legendary ghost ship that is said to be doomed to sail the seven seas forever and ever and never dock. That's what it's called when ships stop at a port. A long time ago, in the year 1641, a ship sank off the coast of the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. The Cape of Good Hope is a very pointy part of the land by the ocean, known as a headland. The ground is super high and it drops down quickly to the sea. It's also part of a peninsula, which is a piece of land that's almost like an island, but not quite, as it's not completely surrounded by water. In the story, the captain of the Dutch ship, which means it came from the Netherlands in Europe, failed to notice that they were sailing straight into a storm, and the ship hit the rocks and began to sink. As it sank, the captain said the ship would be cursed to sail around the Cape forever and ever. The ship is believed to be a type of old Dutch ship called a float, which is a long, narrow ship that was used many years ago to carry cargo across the seas. People have been telling ghost stories and tales about the Flying Dutchman for a very long time, since the 17th century. Sailors and adventurers all across the world have shared these stories with each other. Some of the stories say the ship glows with a ghostly light. Others say that seeing the Flying Dutchman means something terrible is about to happen to you. Like many of our cases on Bust or Trust, the story of the Flying Dutchman has influenced books, poems, films, opera, television and theatre. There was even a roller coaster in the Netherlands named after it, and the KLM Royal Dutch Airlines have an image of it painted onto the rear of all their planes.
What? So a ghost ship on a real plane? Now I'm really confused.
I'm not. It's clearly just a fun tale. Though I know, it's actually up to the chief detectives to decide. So, is the Flying Dutchman a real ghostly ship that sails the waves? Or, more likely, another tall tale from sailors?
I think you and the chief detectives might be persuaded to join Team Truster on this one. All aboard the good ship Evidence.
First piece of evidence.
Our number one piece of evidence for this case are the early references to the Flying Dutchman in literature and poems. The first one of these was from the very, very long-titled Travels in Various Parts of Europe, Asia and Africa during a series of 30 years and upward, written in 1790 by John Macdonald. In the text, Macdonald wrote, "The weather was so stormy that the sailors said they saw the Flying Dutchman." The common story is that this Dutchman came to the Cape in distress of weather and wanted to get into harbour, but could not get a pilot to conduct her and was lost, and that ever since then, in very bad weather, her vision appears. After that, people wrote a lot more about times when the ghost ship appeared in a storm or how sailors off the coast of Africa would see the Flying Dutchman right before a hurricane arrived. Other writers in the 1800s thought that the captain on board the Flying Dutchman was Bernard Vocker. He was a very well-known Dutch ship captain who managed very speedy journeys across the seas, causing many to suspect he had some sort of supernatural powers. The ghost ship being written about again and again has to be evidence that it was something a lot of sailors were encountering on the high seas.
I'm not sure it does, though. As exciting as those written accounts are, they are all from several hundred years ago, which was a time when people were more superstitious and would believe in more magical and fantastical explanations for things that happened. The poems are also from a time when stories often travelled by word of mouth, and there were very few ways to get any hard evidence for tales like this. And, as our regular Chief Detective listeners might know from other cases, sailors in particular really do like to make up some very tall stories.
OK, I know you've got trust issues with sailors' tales over there on Team Buster, but these are just the earliest accounts of the Flying Dutchman. There have been some much more recent sightings, which brings us to piece of evidence number 2.
Second piece of evidence.
Our second piece of evidence is the many recorded sightings of the Flying Dutchman in the Cape of Good Hope all the way back to the 1600s. One incident in particular is of a British ship in 1835 who during a storm thought they were about to collide with another ship until it completely vanished as though it had never been there. But there have also been ghost ship sightings much more recently. In 1939, residents in Cape Town, South Africa, saw a ghostly-looking ship sailing across the sea before it suddenly disappeared. A German submarine crew said they saw a ghostly ship in the Suez Canal in Egypt, and British novelist Nicholas Montserrat said he saw a boat that looked very like descriptions of the Flying Dutchman in the Pacific Ocean when he served with the Royal Navy during the war. And in 1959, the Dutch ship, the Straat Mergelhaan, reported nearly colliding with a ghost ship that then, just like other accounts, simply disappeared. These are just a handful of sightings. There are lots and lots more, all with the same description. An old sailing ship, often with a weird glow, which after a while suddenly vanishes.
Aha, there is actually a scientific explanation for this. It's something called Fata Morgana, which is what happens when the light bends and refracts through different temperatures of air, creating a mirage. That's a type of optical illusion where your eyes see things that aren't really there. This can happen a lot off the shiny, shimmery ocean and works almost like seeing images through a glass of water. You know when it makes objects into funny shapes and the wrong way up? Fata Morgana is very tricksy. Sometimes it makes ships seem like they're in a completely different place to where they actually are. And the air temperature can really change during a storm, becoming cooler or more humid. So, it's very possible the ships the sailors saw were real ships, just not in the locations they thought they were. Then, when the light changed, the ship would vanish.
I can't believe the sea can do optical illusions. I wonder if it can do card tricks too. That is very cool and is a very sensible explanation. But I'm not sure the sea can take credit for the third piece of evidence.
Third piece of evidence.
Which is the curse that means those who spot the Flying Dutchman die a terrible death. The most well-known sighting of the ghost ship was by Prince George of Wales in 1880, before he later became King George V. He was on a ship called the HMS Inconsistent, off the coast of Australia, when they saw the Flying Dutchman. In his log he wrote, "July the 11th, at 4 a.m, the Flying Dutchman crossed our bows. A strange red light as of a phantom ship all aglow, where also the officer of the watch from the bridge clearly saw her, as did the quarterdeck midshipman. But on arriving, there was no sign whatever that any material ship was to be seen, either near or right away to the horizon, the night being clear and the sea calm. 13 persons altogether saw her. At 10:45 a.m., the ordinary seaman who had this morning reported the Flying Dutchman fell from the fore-topmast crosstrees onto the top-gallant forecastle and was smashed to atoms. I don't exactly know what all of that means, but I know it doesn't sound fun at all. I'm not sure Fata Morgana can do that.
Okay. But firstly, you said there was a curse, that anyone who saw the Flying Dutchman died a terrible death. But in your evidence, you mentioned lots of sightings of the ghost ship where no deaths were reported after anyone had seen it. And this incident, well, it's very unfortunate, but it happened nearly 7 hours after seeing the ship. Maybe the poor sailor fell because they were really surprised at what they thought they'd seen and didn't understand it. Or maybe it was just because working on ships back in the 1800s was quite dangerous, especially if you were up in the cross trees, which are the highest parts of the ship, and even above the sails. It was a tricky job to do, and back then, they didn't even have the best safety rules to make sure everyone stayed secure.
It was obviously a dangerous job working on a boat in the 1800s. You might have seen a ghost ship. You don't get that if you work in an office. What I don't understand, Athena, is why was everyone so scared about seeing the Flying Dutchman?
What do you mean?
Well, people go on ghost trains, don't they, and have a great time. So why not ghost ships? I feel the Flying Dutchman should have just started selling tickets, and it could have been a real hit. Hello, is this where I can get a ticket to the Flying Dutchman?
Oh yes, indeed it is. Just the one.
Yes, please.
You won't be needing a return.
Oh, I see. What time is the next voyage?
No one knows. We just have to wait till the storm clouds gather, and then it shall appear.
Right.
But it won't port. It's doomed to never port, and it never will.
Your sign says the trips are from right here.
Well, I couldn't have a booth in the sea, could I?
No, sorry, of course not. How do I get onto it then? Is there a small boat that takes me to the ship?
Oh, no. Any real sailor wouldn't go near it. If you want to board, you'll have to swim.
Swim?
If you can board, that is. No one's ever come back to tell the tale.
I see.
And whatever you do, don't look at it, or you'll be cursed.
So, I've got to wait till a storm happens, then jump in the sea and swim towards something I can't look at.
Aye. And it will be £19.95, please, or £15 if you're a member.
Oh, how do I become a member?
It's for ghosts only.
I think actually maybe I'll leave it for today. I thought a ghost ship would be more fun than that.
Ticket for the ghost train instead?
What's that like? Does anyone return from the ghost train?
Oh yes, everyone. It's a little fairground ride for ages 6 and above. Be warned though.
Uh-oh.
A pretend spider just jump out at you on the second turn.
Do you sell anything else?
Ghost peppers?
Are they deadly?
They are quite spicy.
But not cursed?
No.
You really need to work on the ghost branding.
I'll inform our ghostwriter. Have a terrible day.
Ugh, what terrible service.
You're telling me, but it's not worth complaining about, is it?
Why not?
Because they just ghost you?
Of course. Not like us. We'd never leave our chief detectives hanging.
That's right. It's time to pay attention and decide. Does the ghostly Flying Dutchman exist, or is it all just ocean trickery?
Let's recap the evidence.
Evidence recap.
Our first piece of evidence is the many writings about the Flying Dutchman that say it's a glowing ghost ship that's an omen to sailors who see it.
But these writings are all from hundreds of years ago, when people were far more superstitious than they are today. And many of the tales come from sailors who we know on this podcast are known for fantastical stories.
Our second piece of evidence is the many sightings of the ghost ship, with accounts from the 1600s all the way to 1959.
But all these strange things can be explained by a phenomenon called Fata Morgana. It's where light bends off the water, making people's eyes see things that aren't actually there.
The last bit of spooky evidence is the curse that says anyone who spots the Flying Dutchman meets a really bad fate, which is what happened to someone on King George V's trip in 1880.
But that is the only time something like that happened, and there have been many other times people saw the Flying Dutchman and nothing happened to them at all. So it was probably just a sad accident.
So now we're handing it over to you, Chief Detectives.
What do you think? Are you a Flying Dutchman mythbuster?
Or a Flying Dutchman myth truster? We want to hear from you, and most importantly, whose crew you're on for this case. Join me, Captain Truster. You know it's the best.
Nope, our chief detectives know the only one with a ship-shaped case is Team Buster. Send us your voice notes with an explanation of why you're a myth truster or mythbuster when it comes to whether the Flying Dutchman ghost ship is real or a spooky illusion and old tales.
All you have to do is ask your grown-ups to help you email us your voice notes or thoughts to hello@bustortrust.com.
Tell us your name, age, what you think all the evidence means, and please make sure your grown-ups give us permission to use your voice notes or emails in our next episode. You can also send us a question on Spotify Q&A, but please get permission from your grown-ups and don't include any personal details so we can publish them safely. We won't always be able to use all of them.
But we do love to hear them. And here's one from Lola.
So good! I'm on Team Truster for this one. Fairies are totally real. So cute. Truster forever. Team Truster forever. Forever, ever. But what if you get evidence that means you've got to join Team Buster?
I trust that she will never ever need to join Team Buster. That's right, fairies are totally real. Thanks, Lola.
Thanks to all of you. We make the best chief detectives together.
Don't you know it? And if you enjoyed the show, please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more great episodes. We love to hear what you think. So please do rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It does help even more detectives to find, bust or trust. We'll even read some of your reviews out on the show.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for more Bust or Trust.
Athena, I've just realised why the Flying Dutchman never gets to the port.
Because it's not real?
Come on, Athena. No, it's because... Are you ready?
Oh no, I know.
It only has a skeleton crew. Get it?
I wish that joke would suddenly vanish too.